Good morning. I'm still having my espresso. There we go. Thank you for that. Words. Yesterday we were talking about how I resolved satisfactorily my temporary quandary about the polarities for two concepts, two closely related concepts, two concepts of particular value to me, in that they're areas that I needed to address, and that was the silence. The silence, of course, that leads to clarity. This is what I've always read by rigorous discipline to silence the mind. And I shared quite freely that this has eluded me. And I pretty much put it to rest when I put that whole struggle, the whole concept of continually disciplining myself physically. For the most part, with vegetarian diet, which just wasn't correct for me. Part of our journey, the big part, is discovering what works for us. And it's a process of elimination, isn't it? But ultimately it turns out to be a process of surrender, acceptance of the necessity of surrender, accepting the benefits of surrender. So here we are, this clarity. And I was quite happy to embrace equanimity. Maybe not at the cost of clarity, but equanimity was what was available to me. Equanimity was the end point for my jhana yoga practice. But as mentioned before, the rewards for each of the four different primary paths are not relegated to that particular path. The end result shouldn't be why you pick a particular methodology, a particular path. In fact, that should be of no import. It's to which is most conducive, which is best suited for your own purposes of remembering what you've always known. But these states of mind, this clarity, is intriguing. And recently, it's been a big part of my practice. maybe even to the point of singularity. Maybe it's become the point. The process is living well, doing your best that you can each day, learning to forgive yourself when you've done less than your best. And the underlying principle of all of this is to contribute to the world around you in the best way that you're equipped to do so. Just by living in a state of equanimity, for example, has an impact on everything and everyone that comes within your sphere of influence, your direct sphere of influence, as well as those that are temporarily beyond your direct sphere of influence. Just as the pebble in a pond, in a calm pond, with the concentric radiating circles, this influence continues. And, of course, that which appears opposite, your deeds, actions, and words that are less than what you would like them to be, also has in the same and equal impact. So just by being, just by remembering, by becoming that which we've always been, is a huge contribution to helping others remember what they have always known. The process of remembering. And when you remember, you say, yeah, I always know this. Yes, indeed, you have. So, back to clarity. Is indeed the path to clarity through silence? I'm indeed prepared to accept that. So if we come down a notch, the mind is the obstacle, perhaps. Or maybe it's how we perceive the mind. This work that I've been doing in this realm, almost single-mindedly recently. And when I found an adequate polarity, an acceptable polarity for both silence and clarity, most of the work was done. So this silence that I talk about, the polarity, is communication. So does this mean that we halt all forms of communication within our mind with the end game of becoming clear, obtaining clarity? Or do we need to look at the communication itself? And this is where I had my latest aha moment. There's something to that for me that I'm sharing with you. And remember, I'm in the throes of this process as I speak to you. Look at the nature of communication. If that's the polarity, that contains the seed of its apparent opposite, if communication has the seed of clarity within, of course, it makes sense to examine it. And I started considering the origin of words. Where do my words come from? And as many things, I was given some hints along the way that maybe could have brought me to this examination, these reflections at an earlier time. But I go back to the Blue Buddha, who asked permission to come into my body and sit. And he chose. I said, welcome to wherever you want to. I'm just blessed that you would even consider me. And at this point, I want to remind the same caveat. Buddhas can be many places, every place, at the same time. So, the Blue Buddha asking permission to sit with me does not preclude in any way his ability to be with everyone. This is my reflection of the Blue Buddha. And yes, they do come in colors. Like everything else. Even black and white is the colors. Or colors after all. So the Blue Buddha had this dialogue with me, asking, and I blessed him. And I use this pronoun without prejudice. Her, him, her. I said, welcome. And as the Blue Buddha settled in, right early on, there was a time when I hit a bump in the road. I fell out of the grace of equanimity for reasons that I can't quite remember now. And temporarily, my vessel was not a suitable place, as he told me later, for him to sit. So I didn't even notice, honestly, that he was gone until he asked me if he could return again. But the Blue Buddha explain to me, let it be known to me, however he accomplished this, that he wanted to sit between the green of the heart chakra and the blue of the throat chakra, right on top of where I imagine my vocal cords to be. And I came to understand that if words originated here, if my words came from my heart, if the origin of my words was the green of the heart chakra, before it became the blue of the throat chakra, his blessings were bestowed. My words were given power. And I remember making a conscious choice that since I had embraced ordinariness, since I came to understand that there's absolutely nothing special about me, number one, I avoided another incarnation of the ego, the spiritual ego, which relies upon, which springs from the misguided acceptance of yourself as extraordinary, as extraordinary. And this is what I've called the last temptation. And this is a common place to get stuck, but only through humility, through the recognition that while each of us is special in our pursuit, it's only through becoming ordinary, recognizing that this is the condition of all of us, this unity, that we all emanate from the same source. So words, when words came from here and came out here, pass through. The vocal cords, the blessings from the blue Buddha were contained within the words. And then I thought more about communication, if this is indeed the opposite, the polarity of clarity. Sorry, it's the polarity of silence, the polarity of clarity is doubt. Doubt of any form, clouds the clarity, clouds the pure water that reflects the infinite. Doubt stirs it up. So communication and silence somehow I realized that thinking for the most part, thinking implies that the origin of the words, the origin of the communication, because thinking indeed is self-communication, isn't it? You're talking to yourself. Something I frequently do. I verbalize even my thinking. Thinking out loud, they call it, right? So this thinking, is this what you need to conquer, to defeat? I read and I believe that a few souls have managed through rigorous discipline, through denial, through restriction, that they've quieted the mind into stillness and silence, and they're graced with clarity. I know some individuals are doing it, have done it, and will do it. And maybe you're amongst them. All I really knew was that I wasn't amongst them. So I needed to look at the nature of communication to more completely understand silence. So does all communication cease, and then you're left with clarity? Or began to seem possible to me that the origin of the words might make a difference. The origin of the communication. It was shared with me that if the words originate from here and come out here, come out vocally, that the quality, the timbre, the sound of my voice could help towards people healing themselves. And this is the key. I wasn't given any gift to do anything other than provide the possibilities for others to self-heal, because everything comes back to ourselves. Otherwise, it's an outside influence. Unless you embrace, accept at least my words and allow them to become part of you, only then can any kind of healing take place. But what about words that originate from the brain and come out? I've always been quick to share what my nimble brain has provided. And it's usually insightful, but it contains the seeds of disturbance or destruction even. The person receiving my message has not always been welcoming, to put it mildly, to my words that come from my mind, that I just kind of would spit out. So I stopped doing this, I learned that I needed to be invited. That these perhaps would be useful, but only when the recipient invited these insights by requesting, by inviting me to share, by asking me. And as I've learned, when people do invite you to share, most times they want you to validate, to find the truth in their own words, to agree that they're correct. And what I've learned is if I can't agree that they're correct, I don't. But I don't offer, I don't give this insights that want to go straight from here to here. I started regulating, started controlling them, understanding that their nature was not constructive most times until the people are prepared to hear them, which, in all honesty, they seldom are. They have to be well into their journey to nowhere, their journey to now here, to even entertain. And anything that I can offer will come to them sooner or later, and it'll come to them in a timely manner when they need it to come. So, this part of communication, I was active participant in curtailing it. And believe me, it took a lot of work because I have a fast brain and a faster mouth. But it was in the conservation of energy, of aging and recognizing that energy is not as readily available to me as it was when I was younger. It takes energy to think. It takes energy to speak. So curtailing this part of was again originating here. And now I was looking at communication not to stop it, not to halt it, because I realized with my study of polarity, the nature of polarities, without the seed of communication within the polarity of silence, it's not its true nature on the continuum of degrees between silence and communication. So I started to understand that it wasn't about, at least for me, halting communication in every form, which not only was impossible for me, or seemed impossible, but most times I considered counterproductive. The same question. We're given this fine mind, and then we stop using it? My mind was my tool on my path. Jnana Yoga, information. morphing into knowledge, culminating in wisdom. That was the hope, at least. That was the intent. So now I'm supposed to discard this tool, the only tool in my arsenal that lasted the test of time. Everything else failed me at some point. Only my mind was left in my toolbox. So this was my dilemma. Should I eliminate, should I toss out the only tool? Or should I refine the tool that I had? I think the answer is obvious. So, origins. Where do the words come from? And quick to see from here to here, from here to here. But what I didn't see immediately, even though I experienced it, was this journey from the mind to the heart to the throat. The mind to the heart to the throat. And it started to become, it went this way, and it was a continuum. And I saw it. And when I saw the organicness of it, when I felt the organicness of it, it felt right. So communication, whether it originates in my mind or originates in my heart, if done properly, and this is where breathing, this is where equanimity has paid off. This understanding that it doesn't have, there's not only two possibilities. Within the realm of possibilities, there's many options. And now I'm in the beginning of understanding that as long as those words are circulating, traveling from one origin to another before they come out. And now, let's see if clarity will become a state of mind that is with me longer than the brief opportunities, the brief blessings that it has given me to date. So my silence includes communication, and at least the seeds of communication. And it was by looking at the origin of this communication, by starting to see that communication has its place, that communication can be useful. In fact, on a personal level, communication is necessary. And it was through the examination of origins, it was through the understanding of this process both ways, from heart to mind to voice, from mind to heart to voice. And the expression of this is somewhere in the middle of this cycle.